10 years ago, I took a plane to spend a summer holiday with my grandparents in China. Little did I know that it would take me another 8 years till I returned from this holiday. Growing up, one of the hardest questions I faced was, where are you from? I used to identify myself as half British and half Chinese. However, with recent events, now I'm stuck. James Baldwin said, "Know from whence you came." If you know whence you came, there are absolutely no limitations to where you can go. So this summer holiday, I have decided to ask my family members to see where they think home is to them. Where do they think they belong, and how do they identify themselves culturally? Hopefully from this journey, I will gain further insight on who I am and where I belong.
咁對於你哋嚟講，屋企係喺邊度？係喺越南或者喺中國呢？或者英國？
邊度都冇係。中國人講我哋越南人，越南人講我哋中國人。而咁嚟到英國，又講我哋 Chinese 人喎，乜嘢都冇係喎，邊度都冇認我哋。
咁當時你同我講，當時你細個時候喺越南住噶嘛，係咪？咁越南對於你嚟講係咪屋企呢？或者你覺得都唔係屋企？
我當係。
我當係屋企。
我當係。
你喺越南，即係你住咗咁多年啦，係咪？咁你決定你走去？
係越南太難啊嘛，係冇。要食冇有得食，要錢冇有得錢係冇。都難到極度咯，仲有咩仲諗越南做咩鬼？生活水平一正熱咧，我哋翻工係打政府工咧，得一斤2兩啊，1斤2兩啊，一正熱喎，唔係一個星期喎，行咗細路哥啦，老大人得3兩喎，一正熱咪食油都冇啊！你咁嘅生活，你仲諗佢做咩？講到我都驚喎，咪講諗喎。冇我哋英國係冇，只有冇減食係冇驚肥，坐越南係冇，等你想食多粒油都冇啊！係我冇咩牽掛嗰種啊，所以咁難個生活講越南我都驚喎。
生活好困難㗎嘛，即係you're struggling to get to for the next meal. So my mom said, "We're going to China. That's where the rice comes from. So at least we're going to get rice." Yeah, we got enough to eat. Yeah, and so it was fun adventure because people were nice when we crossed over to China. They say, "Brother, come here." The Vietnamese people weren't very nice to us, because since we were born, we've always been, your Chinese black beans, they call us.
越南話佢講中人係中國係鬥啊嘛，鬥屙得個大毛公嘛，係喎，鬥啊嘛，咁啊結婚嗰啲人要鬥士啊嘛，鬥士都係插頭啊嘛，係喎，咁我哋話叫人見講到鬥士咪好嬲嗰種咯。還有你講我呢舊時嗰啲人舊時似越南佢冇廁所噶啦，係冇山邊人都係咁樣，今日有個篤包地啊嘛。咁佢就有一陣人問我慢咗啲，咁佢就講係我啊，我咁越南人咪安嗰隻篤包個名叫我咯，就係咁至，即係一講越南人一講篤包係我呢，嗰中國華僑人就呢就好嬲咯，都係當鄙視嘅嘛，係冇講嘅柒啊嘛，就冇中意聽我嘅話咯，
你可唔可以講講你翻到中國個時候啲情景？你覺得你印象中最深刻嘅一個景啊，或者係你覺得你嘅心情啊，或者點，或者一句話啊？
我哋呢就搭火車到老街嗰時呢，嗰條老街喺中國搞條江咯，即係行路過得去來搞條橋，即係我哋冇得跟橋過，就跟個水呢過啊，個江尾呢過啊。即係未落到呢，坐江邊呢嗰邊嘅人就冇咁出聲，中國人就冇咁出聲。我哋一點腳落到水呢，佢 邊嗰邊就腰手啊，係跟呢個啊，係跟呢個啊，咁我哋咪放膽過咯。淨係跟呢個啊，跟呢個啊，冇個水族喎，水冇清喎，冇識深淺嘅喎。咁咪過到นู่น呢度，咁咪入去有人收留我哋咯，係冇有飯食嘅咯，係冇。
你講啱啊，講到去咗嚟咗中國咁開心，點解你會嚟呢隻你開始就覺得好開心嘅地方呢？
即係一山啊嘛，一山高啊嘛，係冇。個頂厚，但頂仲厚啊嘛，係冇。咁咪整走咯。又見有一個，我哋呢就係嗰啲小星呢，就係嗰啲老鬼橋啊，嗰啲印尼人啊，做啲事多年啦咯。即係講佢有親戚去外國啊，去外國啊幾好啊嘛。一張人做工可以養得屋人啊嘛，咁講嘛。那時我哋中國如中國那時都係未係中國未係好嘅話，仲去布飛買布，仲去買糧，又係出街寫一碗飯都要糧票嘅話，又得未得自由嘅話，就買衫褲咧又要布票。買糖買米又都要票嘅分配㗎，冇得係講自由買㗎。到中國嗰陣時啊，豬肉啊嘢都係有得係分配㗎。
你當時你去香港嘅時候，你哋知道可以去英國㗎嘛？
我知，
就係諗住去香港
先。即係識又分配，即係都係隨風飄流嗰種啊。去到嗰度，你分配可能我哋咪肯定咯，我哋冇跟冇底嘅咯，即係同我算完個鋪票咁係冇，你推跟人去我哋跟人去咁咯。
If you describe 一個 scenery 係咪？但係你剛嚟到英國嘅時候，但 really like 到而家都記住嘅。
It's when we first landed, yeah, we move out of Heathrow. You see the countryside. It's because it's in November, so it's very sort of rainy, damp, but the cold air. But because came out from Hong Kong, where the air is very humid and stuffy, the air in England is very. You feel like you can breathe the fresh air and the empty countryside. You see miles of countryside without any people. So unlike in Vietnam and Hong Kong, you see people everywhere. So you feel like, this is a nice and quiet place. But the adults were crying on the bus because they go, where have we got into? This raining damp place? There's not a house in sight in 3 hours of driving. So they all start crying. They said, oh no, where have we gone? Where? Because everyone has an image of England being in in 100 years ago. So it's foggy, smoggy. So they didn't know what England is like. So they all wanted to go to America. So when they get sent to England, they say, oh no. We thought we landed in heaven almost. It's like that sort of feeling. Because when we move out of the refugee camp, we went to Sunderland. Then we're giving a council house, but the neighbours, they put clothes and everything, even food in the fridge, everything. So everything was made ready. They have a dinner ready for us when we come in. So we have furniture, we have clothing for each person. They know roughly the age, so they put clothing in each room that fits the person. So they were really, really nice there. Yes.
Wow.
But not until later when they get later on, sort of after a year, when the novelty wore off, and we start seeing all these racist people, because Sunderland is a very poor place. We live in a sort of a council estate, so lots of unemployment. So then you have this hustle, chinky, every day, Ling Chung, we meet again, because that was the time when the Channel 4 just started. They were showing all these Chinese movies, the water margins. So then it becomes living as a teenager. You grow up, it's horrible time, because you get bullied every day. Well, not bully, verbal bully, racist remarks, Chinky, you have your group of friends, but you also have every day you have to face people, ching chong, oh, oops, these Japanese.
Do you feel like people accept you here? Would you feel like you belong here, or do you feel like
Not in
certain
school.
stages?
Not in school. Lots of racism in school. But then you learn to grow up because there's not a lot of people of color around here in the sticks. So you kind of go out, see the world, see what it is, and pretty much everywhere's the same. So it's not great, but it gets better when people become more understanding when they'll grow up.
So, like, what was your responses to that? Was it just carry on?
It's different because, like, you got to build your personality up. What I've realized is racism happens everywhere, but if you have a personality that gets along with most people, they kind of just, like, nobody means it in a bad way. People are just like, oh, you gotta, like, tell them, like, yo, that's not okay, but you're okay. You don't mean it in a bad way. It just slips out of your mouth.
I've been called a few times, like, the lead for coronavirus, because as a race, it's not as a, grouped as a race. All of Chinese have, like, been looked at as the lead of coronavirus. So now what's happening is, like, I've been in class once and they had, like, played this video about a lot of Chinese kids getting bullied over having coronavirus, and then all of my classmates, because I was the only, like, full Chinese there, they all stared at me, and I knew, like, they had sympathy in their eyes, because I felt really awkward there because I felt really awkward there because I obviously don't have coronavirus, but they can tell that I'm Chinese, and that like, I know they have sympathy over me, but I shouldn't be pitied on.
You carry on, you try to mind your own business and not get into trouble, because if you get into a fight, you probably get beat up because we Chinese are smaller than them. So I just bluff my way out of situations, just act cool, don't panic, and act like the kung fu, so they don't know that you don't know, so, and you never show off or never sort of provoke people. Try to avoid fighting, but winning by avoiding the fight. That's how we survive. Then we moved to London, and there's a lot of foreigners. We feel a lot more safer amongst the foreigners because they don't single you out anymore because there's more of you. Hence I think that's why Asian people, they tend to live in communities, so they feel safe in their community. Yeah. But after that, we move out to small cities, a small village like this. And I feel more safe in the small village because they're more friendly and not so many Chinese people around. Yeah, it's very welcome. It's very southern England. It's very different from northern England. Northern England is very racist place because people are poor, uneducated, ignorant, and there's not so many foreigners, so they don't see that much. Because people, they will always pick on people who's different, or easy target. It's the kids, the shy kids that gets bullied in school. That's me. And that's how it is, So it's just to do with having no money, really. They need someone to blame, because it's always the foreigners. They come here and take all our job. That's what they said. But if you think, we never do any job that they'd want to do anyway. All foreigners only do the jobs that the English don't want to do. That's why the foreigners are here. They do the jobs that no one wants to do. All the dirty jobs and hard-working jobs.
Việt Nam nhân đi giờ mỗi nhà ngồi thì hay Việt Nam nhân đây còn ngồi thì hay tàu xì à không? Còn mà chúng con đi người chúng con đi chúng coi còn ngồi thì hay Việt Nam nhân Việt Nam gì em không?
Ở英國咧？
英國係講嗰啲清奇咗咩？
係啊，講我哋精。
Yeah, refugees, if you look at the point of British people and the English people, the local, they feel like they've been diluted so much. Foreigners are overtaking. That's why they fear refugees, because they fear too many outsiders changing their culture. It's like if you go to Brandon, you see a lot of Eastern European shops that weren't there before, or in Thetford. The high street has been changed, and people always resist change. They feel change is a bad thing. But if you look at in England, 10,000 years ago, all the British, the English people, they weren't born here. They come from other European countries. They come from France. They come from Norway. They come from other regions to colonize this land. So there is no original Englishman or original Chineseman. They all are refugees. That settles. But it's just a matter of time, how far you go back in time. So every land is colonized by refugees. Even the Americas, the Incas are refugees. They don't just appear there.
Are you personally scared of change that much? Like, for example, Michael, your white girlfriend, right? Like, I feel like there is a fear, or at least I feel some people have a fear, of what you said about dilution of culture.
我開頭呢有少少唔係咁贊同嘅，因為我哋覺得都係自己人，好似或者講揾翻自己人呢。我哋嘅習俗，我哋嘅食嘢方式，好多嘢我哋都係按照我哋自己本身個文化去遺傳落去噶嘛。咁而家佢哋啲白人嘅風俗等緊個禮貌上，或者咧我哋有冇同個生活上、溝通上都係爭少少啦，係冇。不過而家攞佢接觸咗，嗰女仔性格都幾好，都冇咩差別啊。
因為老得就係同聲同氣個咪，好似親密好多都有偈傾啊嘛。你嗰啲你問候我你冇識，我問候你冇識係冇。嗰嘢冇當好生疏嗰隻。照我心目中，照我嚟講係冇。有得選擇就冇選擇係咁，冇得選擇就冇辦法，係冇。
初次會驚咯，因為我自己喺度大，喺英國大，我13歲過嚟，我爸阿媽都they disagree to have a white boyfriend， 係咪 ？so 都我都唔知點解唔可以 accept 嗰啲 white 嘅 boyfriend 啦。但係咧，我仔咧，如果有 white girlfriend 咧 ，I don't mind。As long as she is nice, is kind, she's 都係人嚟噶嘛 ，human 啊嘛 ，I don't mind really。佢中意就得噶啦，係咪？
我都覺得係啊。
係啊，
我都覺得係。
總之係 personality is good， yeah education I'm happy that's it。都冇所謂，我覺得真係冇所謂，佢哋開心就得啦。
Personally, from my opinion. The planet is changing because we all migrate from the one group of people, then we all mutate into different groups to cope with the environment. Now the environment has changed. Now we need the genes to mix again, so everyone has the ability to cope with the changing world that's coming. So like global warming. So people with darker skin, they can absorb. Or mix with lighter skin so they can absorb or repel more sunlight. So that's how you survival of the humans.
So 你係對佢呢件事情 actually quite accepting and positive, right?
It's natural. You can't stop change. It's like water will always flow downwards. It's like resisting change is hopeless. But it's like grandma. Because if you don't see the big picture, then change is a bad thing. But for me, if you want to live here long, so see, you can't remain Chinese long. You have to mutate and become sort of half-caste, then breed out, become English. Then you wouldn't have a sort of ethnic cleansing in 300 years' time. Because we live in Vietnam for almost 200 years, but we were kicked out for being Chinese. If we have integrated when we went to Vietnam, then there wouldn't be any more Chinese. Then there wouldn't be a kicking out anymore. So changing and mixing with the culture and become integrated it's essential to be if you want to live in the future. Because what happens if we have, say, in 50 years' time, we have war between China and America. So England will be siding with America. So all the Chinese, you and me, will be round up like the Japanese did in the Second World War and put in the camps with machine guns, train on you, although you're British born. But you will still be, because you're Chinese, your heritage, you will never be English. So that's how things are. So if you want to be safe, you have to embrace change and become whatever, merge with the locals. But change takes slowly, because it's not acceptable in grandma's age generation. It's more acceptable in my generation. Then for Michael's and the next generation, like your kids, they wouldn't think about it. There's no different. They become British. They become English. So they don't see themselves as Chinese. Then for their grandchildren, they are 100% English. So change, because you can't stop change, because it's only for only a certain amount of years that you're here. Once you're not here, like 300 years later, no one remembers who I am.
What culture do you identify with? Like you were Chinese or British?
Both. Half and half. Like Hovis, half and half bread. Like you can just be both. It's fine.
I feel more British, but I'm still feel Chinese.
Without thinking about
like a bit of both.
Without thinking of what I was going to say, I would say of Chinese. Like just naturally, auto language.
Yeah, growing up in a very Chinese environment,
I was growing up in a Chinese environment.
Yeah, but even if we do live here, you still talk to English people, British people, everyone. Except you kind of do still feel Chinese. Yeah.
Like when you talk to other people and then they'd be like, "Oh, are you Chinese?" Or they're like, "Yeah, I'm Chinese." and it's like it wouldn't say that I was born in Britain. I was actually born in Britain, so I'm not that Chinese. Like I would just come like, "Yeah, I'm Chinese." 你有返過中國睇㗎係咪? Do you feel more like a visitor there, or do you feel like it's home as well? Or?
No, visitor.
I know I'm Chinese, am I? But I don't think I was 都係習慣咗咯住咯，因為就上到英國慣咗咯。
I don't look stereotypically Chinese, so I'm like an outcast out there. I got stopped at border control, so I'm a visitor out there. Doesn't matter. It's like, I go there every once in a while.
When you go back to China, do you feel like you're more like a foreigner, a traveler?
I feel like I belong, but then they're always talking like hello, or they're saying it and they're trying to talk Chinese to make us feel more comfortable, but then it just makes us more awkward.
Yeah.
It just makes it more awkward.
No, in China, I feel like I am actually. No one knows that I'm not Chinese. I am Chinese. That's where you don't stand out anymore. That's a place, especially in Dongxing. They even speak the same dialect as we do. Yeah. So I am a local there. So yeah, I think that's when you feel, this will be home. But when you go there, you have a place that you know that where you belong. Because I like being the outsider. I don't mind being the outsider. Because like if you go back to China, you're just another Chinaman, But if you're here, you're the Chinaman in the village, It makes you special. I think so. So that's how I see it. So I don't mind. But if you go to China, you always feel like that's where you don't stand out anymore. That's where it's like you merge with the background. No one notices you. If you walk around in the village, you're the Chinese guy. You stick out like a sore thumb.
I recall asking my dad where you want to be buried when you die. He told me that you would like to be cremated and ashes thrown out to the sea. 我哋其實我都好好奇點解呢隻答案。我有問過佢 why not buried, you know? Why not buried in UK or China or I don't know, wherever you want to be? And he was like, 因為我哋係海人 That's what he said. 因為我哋係海人 People of the sea. I've been feeling foreign for quite some time now. What is the feeling of foreign? It's a feeling that you don't belong. You know, nobody's saying that to you in front of your face. I mean, people who are saying that to you, they must be really bad. But it's people you see that give you that the side glance, you know, or they talk to you in a different way. They choose not to speak to you about certain subjects when they are speaking to other people, and you are like other people. I think foreign is the idea of when there's us and them. Once there is a clear distinction that us and them, doesn't matter what that distinction is, that could be, I don't know, gender, anything, you know. When there is a distinction between this is us and this is them, that's when you start feeling foreign. Because they will always put you as them. I have experience 呢隻 feeling， 即係兩個地方都有。我又喺中國又有 feel 過，英國我有 feel 過。英國嘅時候 it was, you know, like I said, very subtle. It's glances, it's the way they talk, it's stuff they, you know, choose not to speak to you about. And I felt like this before, and it's also the way I look. It's just so different from other kids growing up, you know. It feels very different, and I do feel foreign. Also in China, amazingly, because, you know, the first thing I noticed was, hey, I look like a lot of people here. But 即係我有玩過一個細遊戲咧，就係當我細個時候有啲時候我會 just like, you know, be like, oh yeah, 我係中國嚟嘅點點點。But you know, once they come to know you and you do tell them that, oh, 我其實係喺英國即係生到六歲啊，6歲先翻嚟呢度嘅時候，佢哋會 start talking to you differently. A funny story. I've been in China for 8 years now, and the other day I was talking to my cousin in China, and I was like, oh, 我也看这个电视剧 right? And then she was like, wait, 你看这个电视剧你怎么会看呢 right? She was like, 你怎么会看这个东西呢？我都不知道，你不是在英国的吗？你怎么会看这个东西？ The funny thing is, at that time I haven't moved back to UK yet, and I was so that means I was still not permanently, but quite long, like permanently residing in China, and also she was really it's just funny, you know. 我在这里8年，你觉得我可能不会看这种电视剧吗？ It's, you know, it's nothing, not a big deal, you know, but at the same time, is it that shocking? I've been here 8 years. I've been living here 8 years, you know, you think I won't know, you know, and it's not just 一个电视剧, she has made the same remarks about like, but you know, it's just, is it that shocking? And it's interesting how you can see people, they give you a different glance, you know, they be like, you know, they treat you differently. And it's nothing in your face, you know, nothing as much as in your face. And I don't think they try to do it. Of course they don't try to do it, I hope. But nevertheless, you still feel foreign because, you know, people of the sea, I guess.